First of all, thank you. Good morning to all of you. My name is Almir Badnjevic, and I'm coming here as one member of the board member of Clinical Engineering Division under the IFMBE, International Federation for Medical Biological Engineering. And today, through this keynote speak, I will try to show you the whole solution, what we have made a few years ago in Bosnia, what is a real clinical engineering approach. So what was the first of the problems which we can use now? The first one is that more than 2 million of the people, of the deaths and injuries of the patient is caused by the medical devices in the last 10 years. What's the scope? That the post-market surveillance of diagnostic and therapeutical medical devices. The goal is to implement, goal of our country and of us, is to implement accredited laboratory. Later on it will become the notified body per medical device regulations for inspection of medical devices, to establish the medical measurement traceability change for accurate and reliable diagnosis and the treatments. Benefits: the first is protected patient, then accurate and reliable diagnosis and treatments, then post-market control of medical devices, which is currently a huge problem all over the world, and decrease of the maintenance cost in all healthcare institutions. The need is adjustment with the new medical device regulation to make a legislation like what is proposed by the WHO guidelines and by some of the metrology rules. This is some content, how it will look like, and in fact what we will talk about it today. So let's start with the current state and some kind of the motivation. The first, what was motivation for us before all of this, because that was 2014 year, is the fact that when you go, for example, in the hospital in Berlin, and after 1 week when you go with all of those checks, for example, in the hospital in Munich, which is the same country, just another cities, they are not accepting your diagnosis, they are not accepting your results, lab results, MRI results, etc., etc. Why? The biggest question is because there is no, in fact, established traceability. So that was some kind of approach which we, and some kind of the problem which we recognize and which we said that we want to move on. When we look at the measurement and when we look at the, for example, and traceability and other things, we saw that it is very important, and there is a lot of money which is spending on the measurement, on traceability. So you know that the country is involved in all checks of the gas pumps, in all checks of the weights, in all checks of the different kind of the electricity meters, water meters, etc., etc., but nothing about the medical devices. So that was another approach what we wanted to say. Also, when we are talking about the traceability, when we are talking about the SI units, the first thing what was on our mind was, for example, the definition of the SI units. And for example, here is one example of mass of the kilo. So when you buy 1 kilo of the sugar, 1 kilo of the banana or whatever, it is everywhere 1 kilo all over the world. But when you have a baby and when you put it on the scale or the weight in the incubator, when it's just born in one hospital, when you say that baby has 3.5 kilo, that result is not acceptable. Even that kilo is a kilo, but in the hospital the kilo is not the kilo in all of them. So that is a huge problem, what we saw and what we wanted to check. When we check then the WHO and all other elements, regulations, etc., etc., this is it. In fact, how it looks like, how it's covered by the pre-market and post-market regulations. So the medical device directive, what was the published 1992, is pretty good for the pre-market, but for the post-market activity, really it's not good. When we go to the MODE database, which is in fact FDA database, these are the sum of the numbers of the deaths and the injuries per different kind of the medical device, which are just reported. Many of the countries don't even report it. So the situation is pretty bad. So we started with the development of this solution, and we said, okay, we have 3 different segments which we have to cover. The first, medical devices and their problems. Second one is metrology and their definitions and the rules. And the third one, we need the standards to connect both of those things. Per the medical device, all of you probably know these are the different definitions per FDA, per WHO, per the European Commissions, etc., etc., but all of them are almost the same. What is important to know from another point is this medical device regulation, the medical device directive. What I already said is published from the 1992, and it covers mostly of all of those parts here. What is the more important is when we are talking about the post-market surveillance and other thing is in fact this new medical device regulation, which is really strict and which is currently here in this period here, because in May 2017 it's published. So now we are in this transition period. So from the May 2020 it will be obligatory or mandatory for all European countries here. Probably it will be shift a little bit for 1 or 2 years, because currently the process of establishing notified body in Europe is going pretty slowly. When we are talking about the metrology, this is some of the definition of metrology. Probably all of you heard about it, and it's not connected with the weather and meteorology parts, which is pretty often very similar to each other. It's in fact the definition, its activities of metrology is definition of internationally accepted units of the measurement, realization of these units of measurement in practice, and application of chain of traceability. So linking the measurement to some kind of the reference standards. And each country, in fact, has their own institute of metrology. Metrology, when we are talking about it, when we go into the definitions and other things, we can see that there is scientific, there is industrial and the legal metrology, and we choose that for our country the best thing is, in fact, to put the medical devices into the legal metrology, because when you have a law, when you have legal, then the people will force and then the people will do something about it. What are the most important concepts in metrology? Just to mention them, it's uncertainty, traceability, and calibration. Just three terms are talking so much about all of those things. And of course the standards. When we go in the standards, when we started to discover what's happening there, we saw there is ISO, there is International Electrotechnical Committee, there is IEEE standards, etc., etc. And we didn't find anything what is in fact related with the medical device there. When we look at the group of the standards, then we started to checking all of the group and the series. We saw there is a basic safety, group safety, and product safety standards, which is, let's say, about the medical devices, but nothing about the performance of medical devices. What is the most important part. Then we go deeper, we go into the OEML technical committees, which are in fact connections between the legal metrology, and the standards. And these 3 points are only the 3 points which are directly connected with the medical device, but again, let's say the maximum is blood pressure meters, nothing else, from the 1980s. Then we found out the solution, and this is the solution. So, from the medical device, the most important thing what we want to have here is safety, performance, accuracy, and reliability. To have a safety, we must perform up to IEC 60601 or 62353 norms or standards. To have performance, what is for us the most important part, to good performance, is that we have to perform the inspection of medical devices. Inspection of medical devices is proposed with this standard, 70020, International Standards for Inspection Bodies. How to perform? By using etalons, which will be calibrated and which will help establish a traceability. That calibration will be performed by 70025 standards. So implementing this part here, we are getting, in fact, this. That all of our diagnoses and treatments of medical device, which are the part of the legal metrology, has now the established traceability up to SI units. So each measurement which is performed by any of those devices here is in fact connected now up to the definitions. So this here is definitions, these here are the primary standards which are at international level. This here is in fact the national body, Institute of Metrology. This is the laboratory which is performing this. This is the medical device, and this is the doctor who got results from this medical device here. This is just one example of this lab which is calling VERLAB, which is implemented there. It is appointed by the Institute of Metrology. It is accredited by Institute of Accreditation of our country, and of course it is certified. What are the steps for request for verification or inspection? So first, the healthcare institution send the formal request for verification of medical devices. Then the request is evaluated, checked, is it really in accordance with the legal metrology rules for the medical devices? If it is if the answer is yes, then they are sending the people who is going to measure those devices, and then we are getting the first results. All results are in real time directly entered into the software. This is the first European database with the measurement of all of medical devices performances. We have now the hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of the measurements, hundreds of thousands of the different kinds of the measurement in our online database. And this is how it looks like. So this is the place where you can, in fact, log in. Everyone who is working in this web lab, they have, of course, the access to all of the measurement, but each hospital also has possibility to log in and to check all of their measurement and other things here. This is how it looks like. So, for example, then you can check and search for the devices per institution, per group of the devices, per manufacturer, per devices, per plan of verification or inspection, date of verification, number of certificates, etc., etc. Of course, as you can see, all of those things are published in different kind of the articles there. This is how it looks like with all of the measurement, with all of the points, etc., which are written there. Additionally, we connected then this database with some online register of verification. So now in our country, everyone can see, is that institution, healthcare institution, verified? Do they use the verified devices? Or it's expired? Or they didn't even verify their devices? Because per law in legal metrology, they said if you are using device which is not verified, then it's not good device. It's not accurate device and you cannot use it. Some of the results, I will just show you some of them. So as you can see, this is the number and this is the change, how the number of inspected devices changed per year of year from 2015 to 2017. This is the how we had decrease of the average faulty rates in different devices. This is the total, we have here case which is written and showed what kind of the devices has in fact high risk types of medical devices, which is the safety is not good, which we as can see the faulty devices are pretty big, so we had to work more on that. Also, we identified devices which has, in fact, pretty good accuracy, so it's almost around 95%. Increase the faulty rate, decrease the faulty rates for different type of devices. I will skip all of this here. And what is also the benefit for institutions, for the healthcare institutions, is decrease of the maintenance cost. This is decrease of the maintenance cost per year on clinical centers, hospital, primary healthcare, medical private, and for the total as average number. So around 5 million of KM, which is 2.5 million of euro per year, is decrease of the healthcare institutions' costs, what they spend before in maintenance. And from another point of view, they have established traceability of medical devices and all of their diagnosis and treatments. And the third part, what is very important, first time they have more accurate and more precise medical devices. This is just some. Current research, of course, that wasn't enough for us because we started the story from the beginning with the laws establishing labs, etc., etc. We got results. As I said, we established the totally new database. From that database, because there is pretty people who are in fact working as professors also there at university in academia, then we said, okay, no one is not doing anything, let's say, to manage, for example, some kind of, to predicting the future. So then we said, okay, in all of these database, what we have, in all of those measurements, let's use machine learning and artificial neural network for prediction of performances, for prediction of, let's say, future faults of those devices, and for the planning of the maintenance. And we started with it. Now we are currently here, and we started with the publishing of the papers. For example, now in September of this year, we published this evidence-based clinical engineering machine learning algorithms for prediction of defibrillator performance. It's published in Elsevier, Biomedical Signal Processing and Control. And this is just the first one. Probably in the next few months, there will be more than 10 papers which are on the similar page from the different part of the database. Additional, because we recognize there is no any kind of the standards we have evidence-based proof that we have to do that we need performance standards, etc., etc., we suggested a totally new series of the IEEE standards. It's calling P2727, and we started with it. It is calling, as you can see, Standard for General Vocabulary for Conformity Assessment of Medical Device with the Measuring Function. So that's the whole series, and we already started with the first .1 series, which will be the first one, the second one standard in that series, which is directly standard for conformity assessment testing of cardiac defibrillator for legal metrology purposes. And from this point up to 25 different standards, we are already ready with publication of it. Don't forget also, because it's now official, Medicon 2022 will be in Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina, so we invited Vučko and Grudvi, because it's global from the Winter Olympic Games, to invite us and to come in Sarajevo on this conference. Thank you very much, and that's all.
Thank you, Professor Badnjevic.